So as of now, it seems like Infinity Ward has not fully completed Modern Warfare. The launch overall was a pretty successful launch, but if you go within the game, there's clearly a bunch of missing content within multiplayer. Spec Ops, there's almost no content within Spec Ops, but here's the deal. If you've been watching my videos and you've been watching the leaks and you guys have been hearing all of the stuff we've been talking about, these aren't fake leaks. I mean, this is coming from Infinity Ward's source and they would confirm it after. This is all real stuff. Spec Ops had all this different stuff. Multiplayer had all these different game modes. Campaign had all this different crazy content. And now we are at launch and we don't have any of that. So let's go through what is going on here with this game. I want to say again, this isn't going to be a review of Modern Warfare, and this is just me strictly talking about the content. I mean, I have my own opinions of the game. I'm not saying they're good, I'm not saying they're bad, but I have my own separate opinions of the game. And you can still enjoy the game right now as it is. I'm just saying, based on the leaks especially, and based on what we see, there probably should be a lot more content than what we have right now. And I don't want to seem like I'm asking for too much, but if we were expecting a lot more than we actually got, then that's a bit of a weird situation. So the first part of this missing content issue, let's talk about multiplayer. Someone was responding to the game Revolution. I missed the game modes like Infected, Capture the Flag, and we'll talk about maps within a different video, but the game Revolution says the thing is, both of those modes are done unless they need some last minute tweaks, but as far as I'm aware, they're fully working. Just seems so weird that there's so much content that's missing that's done for launch, and there's a lot more than just Infected and Capture the Flag that are ready, that they've completed, but it's just not in the game. There are so many other modes. I mean, if you look at the modes right now within Modern Warfare, it's really not a lot. TDM, Cyber Attack, S&D, Domination, Ground War, Headquarters, maybe one other one, but there's really just nothing within the game. There are so many other game modes that from the leaks say are complete and ready to be launched, and they're not in the game at launch. What is the point of that? What is the reason of that? Are they just pushing that to DLC? That sucks, because now it's like, oh, we have to bring free DLC to our consumers, to the Call of Duty community, so now we have to take away all of this content at launch and give it to them later on just to make it seem like we're getting this constant stream of DLC, although it is free, so it's not like they're taking it out of the game and then selling it to us later. At least we're getting it later for free. Still, we should have a lot more at launch, especially if these game modes are complete and ready to be released. So that's a really weird situation. I don't know why they're doing that. I think the game modes that we have now are fine. They're fun for the most part, but if we have the opportunity to get these other game modes, especially Infected, like a fan favorite from MW3, why is it not at launch? It just doesn't really make any sense. But I think the big issue is Spec Ops. So Spec Ops is missing so many missions. Where are all the missions I detailed before launch? What I'm the most gutted about is that so much of the Spec Ops content is missing. I guess withholding the missions means less time spent making new missions post-launch, and they can focus on other post-launch content instead, like new multiplayer maps. But it's just so weird to me. Someone was saying 4 Spec Ops missions is way too little. I know, and they have way more done, which is what is disappointing to me, unless they ran into some issue with the large map and it's not their fault. And then he goes on to say as well, there's one mission in the operations and that's it. They have over 20 and you used to be able to roam around the entire map and go from mission to mission pretty much with Spec Ops. And we talked about this within our video. If you want a quick timeline of Spec Ops, we had a leak back in, I think, June or late May that Spec Ops was, it was just being developed and they had so much work to do and they were focusing all of their efforts on that. Campaign was pretty much done, completed, multiplayer pretty much done and completed, but Spec Ops, they just really had nothing done and they had to tackle everything. And there was the worry that may not be done at launch and we may not complete it. They may not even release Spec Ops. I know that was a video, I don't know if you guys remember that, back in July or June I made, one of the, like the early summer during that time. But obviously later on in the cycle, in August and September, we had the leaks where it was like, wow, Spec Ops has not only been completed, but has all these different missions. Even outside of the leaks that we were seeing, when they first revealed Spec Ops, they were saying like this is on a whole nother magnitude to what we saw from Modern Warfare 3. Everyone was saying like this is going to be a huge step up, and Spec Ops right now there's just nothing in it. It's so dry, and there's just really no replayability at all. So here's another thing with the entire map, that large map that we were supposed to be getting. Thing is, you used to be able to play on the entire map and do the missions across the entire map. There's literally barely anything done in Spec Ops right now. They've had way more missions done, so have they held all of that back for post-launch? Not a fan of just leaving out a bunch of content. Player versus environment Spec Ops isn't finished and might end up being scrapped entirely, apparently. That's obviously a huge blow to Spec Ops. It would have been a new element to the game, would have been something a bit more interesting that added a bit more replayability to Spec Ops, because I think that definitely is an issue with the mode. With such little missions and such little to really do within the game, having that would be a bit interesting, and then later on adding more DLC Spec Ops missions and different stuff like that, you know, would continue to grow and make Spec Ops like a game mode that you want to continuously go back to. But now that they might scrap the player versus environment game mode and all of that different stuff within the game, and not really bringing us all of the missions and potentially leaving all of it for post DLC launch, what are we waiting for at this point? We're just waiting for them to fully complete Spec Ops by the end of the DLC season, when it should have really been fully completed right at launch. You know, this is the stuff I was worried about originally, and it looks like it sort of happened. And again, this, I know people are going to think I'm hating in this video, or they're going to say like, oh, you're being, you know, too harsh, or you're just complaining for no reason. This video is separate from my opinions of the game itself and how I feel about the game and the gameplay and the actual weapons and all that different stuff. I mean, it's a separate thing. This video, I really just want to talk about content and the content that we should be getting, and why we are not getting that content, and why that's not a good thing, because it's sort of the same mentality, and it's a bit worse now because of the free DLC, like I said, where it's like, oh, even if we don't give them too much content at launch, you know, we'll continue to give them regular, you know, monthly updates, and then it'll make up for it in the end. But that's not the case, though. I mean, you should have the game fully completed at launch, and then the DLC is extra to the game. It shouldn't be you make the game and then you section a portion of it off for DLC. Look, I don't know what the reasoning is. Hopefully, I mean, they have good reasons for not giving us all of this content that we should be getting. Like the Gaming Revolution said from his sources at Infinity Ward, so much of the Spec Ops content, it's, you know, either unfinished, but a lot of it is done and completed as well, and they're just not giving it to us. Really weird situation here. And here's one last thing, which I know, and I was saying this for so many videos, and I stopped saying it because I just kept on getting hate. The survival mode within this game, I remember I originally told you guys back over the summer a leak about survival mode. Infinity Ward was not planning on making survival mode, bringing it back to the game, and the only reason why they brought it back was, for one, people were just complaining and saying like, oh, we need survival mode within this game, we need this back, and they were like, okay, I guess we will. And then probably also, I'm not confirming this, I don't know for sure, but Sony wanted some sort of exclusivity deal with them, and they were just like, all right, you know, let's just give you survival mode, you can have that for a year, and that's that. And the reason why they're doing that is because, for one, they weren't planning on putting much effort in survival mode to begin with, because they knew that only PS4 guys would be able to play it, and they also didn't really want to make it in the first place. So I already expected it not to be this crazy big deal, but I didn't think that survival mode would be even less than what it was within MW3. So here's from the Gaming Revolution. This is just a common point. Survival should be on every map just like MW3. I'm guessing that's the plan eventually after long. But it's such a weird situation because we're, you know, however many years after MW3, almost 10 years after that game has released, and survival mode is just nothing. There are about 3-4 maps you can play with survival mode, and the game mode itself is either the exact same as MW3 and maybe even slightly worse. It seems like you have just no health within the game mode, and a lot of the ways you actually function, like if you buy weapons within survival mode, you have to have that weapon unlocked within the whole game to actually buy the weapon. So really, if you're playing survival mode and you just got the game, you can't do anything because you don't have any of the weapons unlocked. So you really just can't do anything. And that wasn't like it was in MW3. MW3, you just, if you get more money, if you kill more people, you get to buy the better and better weapons, you get to upgrade them, and that's just how it was. It's such a weird situation. I mean, I had a slither of hope that even though survival mode was just going to be this one-off section of Spec Ops, it was only going to be for Sony, it was only going to be just this little thing they were doing, I thought they would at least improve it from MW3. They would improve it, make it different, interesting, add some new elements and variety to it, but it's like the same thing and maybe even slightly worse than what it was in MW3. It's like, I don't know, how do we get to this point? I don't know. I don't know, man. So I'm just a little frustrated with that, and the lack of content. Although it's not like the game breaking thing, it's not the worst thing ever, and I think I and other people can still enjoy this game without thinking like, oh, we could have had 2 more missions, we could have had 3 more game modes in multiplayer. You could still enjoy the game without thinking like that, but you know, when we knew, especially pre-launch, that we could have had all this content and we should have all this content, and things like survival mode should be improved. Like, I mean, this game should be an improvement from past games, and it's sort of not. It's like, it's a little frustrating. It sucks. So we'll see what they do. We'll see what happens. And yeah, so let me know what you guys think about this. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys later.